I had high hopes for Pierre Poilievre, and I haven't counted him out. I think he has a chance. He certainly would be an improvement over Trudeau, even if he wasn't perfect, but fate intervened and he didn't win. And Mark Carney, with the help of the Liberal partisans at Elections Canada, have done their best to get him as close to a majority as possible. I think he might well be Prime Minister for years. Even worse, Mark Carney and his new Foreign Minister, Anita Anand, have gone even harder for Hamas and against Israel. So much so that Hamas issued its second thank you letter to Canada's government. And Benjamin Netanyahu responded too.
I could never understand how this simple truth evades the leaders of France, Britain, Canada, and others. They're now proposing to establish a Palestinian state and reward these murderers with the ultimate prize. Well, for 18 years, we had a de facto Palestinian state. It's called Gaza. And what did we get? Peace? No. We got the most savage slaughter of Jews since the Holocaust. You won't be surprised to learn that Hamas thanked President Macron and Prime Ministers Starmer and Carney for demanding that Israel end its war in Gaza immediately. Hamas was right to thank them, because by issuing their demand, replete with a threat of sanctions against Israel, not Hamas, these three leaders effectively said they want Hamas to remain in power. I say to President Macron, Prime Minister Carney, and Prime Minister Starmer, when mass murderers, rapists, baby killers, and kidnappers thank you, you're on the wrong side of justice. You're on the wrong side of humanity. And you're on the wrong side of history.
Mark Carney, along with the UK's Keir Starmer and France's Emmanuel Macron, they recently signed a letter condemning Israel. And that's what Hamas and Netanyahu were responding to. Of course, Canada, the UK, and France aren't really diplomatic or military players in the region these days. It's all Donald Trump and the Saudis and the Emiratis. It was Trump in his first term who ended ISIS in a matter of weeks. And he got the Abraham Accords, a peace deal in the region. Canada, the UK, France really had nothing to do with any of that. None of them are significant in terms of providing weapons to Israel. So it's not like that could be a pressure point. They can all pay money to Hamas through the UN, which is what Trudeau has been doing for years. But it's also obviously just a domestic political message, not a foreign relations message. Starmer, Macron, and Carney are just making sure they get the Muslim and anti-Semitic vote. I don't think anyone in the world, including Starmer, Macron, and Carney, actually think that Israel will change its views based on what they say. They're pundits, really. But that's the thing. By demonizing Israel and supporting Hamas, Carney not only woos Islamists, but he emboldens them. So it's not actually a foreign affairs speech. It's a speech about Canada, because he's telegraphing what Canadians think or what the Canadian government thinks. And then you see what happened in Washington, D.C. this week with the assassination of two young Jews outside a Jewish museum by a Hamas supporter who wasn't even Muslim.
No. Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
So yeah, expect things to get worse for Canadian Jews as Mark Carney continues to praise terrorists. That will have no impact whatsoever on the region, but it'll have an impact on our region. But let me show you the news I really wanted to show you. It's what Donald Trump is doing to universities that allow anti-Semitism. I covered some of those stories. I went to some of the encampments. I went to the one at Columbia, a fancy school in New York City. Another school in New York I went to called the Fashion Institute of Technology had another Hamas encampment. Of course, we've seen them across Canada too. What's so amazing about the US ones is how they were so prevalent in the elite universities. The ones taking big money from Qatar, by the way. But it's astonishing to me that kids whose parents pay close to $100,000 a year for tuition at fine institutions, these are great schools, that they prefer to fight the power by basically hating everything about American Israel and going full anti-Semitic to boot. I mean, it's just crazy to me. That was the temper of the times under Joe Biden, but not so under Donald Trump. I think Trump is ideologically adverse to these elite universities to begin with, but more than that, he's not intimidated by them. So very early in his term, really within the first few hours, I don't know if you remember, but he signed executive orders, including those that the U.S. government would end anti-Semitism on these campuses using the power of the purse, like power of money and grants, and civil rights laws were applicable. I think they might have thought he was bluffing, but he wasn't. These universities basically refuse to change their policies towards anti-Semitic hate on campus, calling it academic freedom. They continue to abide anti-Semitic violence. So Trump has been freezing grants to those schools, which are in the hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't know if you know that. Harvard has a huge endowment. They have huge tuition, but they get hundreds of millions of dollars in grants from Trump, really. And the message he's sending is really no different than the case of Bob Jones University in South Carolina. Have you ever heard of that? It's a small university, but it discriminated against black students. They had all sorts of rules. You weren't allowed to have interracial dating, for example. It's not a crime to be racist. Bob Jones University did not commit a crime, but the federal government simply ended its tax-exempt status and other financial favors to it. They didn't shut it down. They said, you want to do that? You want to be the racist university? Fine. No money for you. Well, that's the precedent for Harvard, isn't it? Harvard can be an anti-Semitic university. It's really, really weird, but it's not against the law. In fact, it is their First Amendment right. But that's the precedent. Bob Jones, if they want to be the Bob Jones of Boston, you don't get to collect hundreds of millions of dollars a year from the federal government if you're that racist. So it's just really weird how adamant these schools are at protecting their pro-Hamas extremism. But I think I know why. Again, when I was at the Columbia encampment, I saw that the key leaders of the protests were actually professors, not students. And of course, it's 2025, so a large number of professors are woke activists to begin with. And the DEI bureaucracies at these schools are huge. And of course, 100% of them are pro-Hamas. So these aren't really rogue kids. These kids are more the foot soldiers, the pawns, the visible part of the iceberg. The rest of it really is the whole university system. Professors, bureaucrats, all the way up to the board of directors. There are some real professors who do want to do real teaching and real research, and there are some real students who want to learn in peace and study. Remember, I just bumped into these twin brothers at Columbia, and they gave me a bit of hope. Remember these guys? Well, give me it straight up. You guys seem like regular guys.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask me, it's not my favorite thing in the world. You know, I'm not going to say you can't protest, but I think that it's honestly like, they're just disrupting so much, to be quite honest. It's just like finals are all messed up, classes are messed up, we're going virtual, stuff like that. These things have just like, it just kind of stresses the regular student out, like, especially with like the football on top of it. We're like doing this and that, and this is all going on. We have to worry about whether we can get in through this gate, that gate. We're all closed off. It's like, it kind of feels like we don't have our own, it's not our school anymore, in a way.
Let me ask you this. I know that there's protests, but then there's some what I would call anti-Semitic actions. Yeah. Are you aware of any Jewish kids or other kids who think, I don't want to even go to school anymore because I feel, like it's not my place?
That's what all the professors, like, that's why we're all doing a bunch of virtual stuff now, because these Jewish kids are scared. That's the problem. That's what I think. I think it's all great when people, express their rights and stuff like that. But like, I feel like this is just taking it a step forward, just a step a little too far. The anti-Semitic stuff is like it's not cool. So there are good guys and gals, but, Harvard, Columbia, other elite schools, they are largely captured by woke, anti-American, anti-Semitic mobs. That's just what's happened. Trump wants to stop what they're doing, wants to stop their anti-Semitic crimes. It would be as if, I feel like we've taken a step backwards in terms of race harmony in America. It's just, and if you swap in another race, if this was Ku Klux Klan racism against blacks, we would all be shocked, but it's happening every day against Jews. Trump wants to stop that. And he wants the universities to stop allowing foreign students to engage in these hate marches, disruptions, riots, like the ones at Columbia, where they actually trapped, effectively kidnapped janitorial staff from Columbia in an illegal occupation and trashing of the school. I mean, do you remember these images?
But the Ivy League is rotten. So here's Trump's new move, and I think it's incredible. Trump is removing the legal right of these universities to bring in foreign students. Now, that's a shame, because foreign students who actually want to go to study at Harvard, I bet there are some great kids caught in the crossfire, but there's a lot of activists who, like in Canada, come to the U.S. under the pretense of learning, but are really just activists for Iran or Qatar or Palestine or whatever. And by the way, the admissions offices probably bring those people in with emphasis. And if the universities won't crack down on the actual criminal conduct of these foreigners, Trump has said he will just nuke the whole foreign student program by removing the power, by taking away the right of Harvard University to grant visas to their applicants. You can't just go to Harvard because they let you in. You need a visa. Harvard has the power to give you one. Trump is saying no more. Here's the announcement to that effect today by Kristi Noem, that's the Department of Homeland Security Secretary. I'm going to read this. I'm going to read every word here because it's just too good to leave anything out. This is a press release from the DHS website today. Harvard University loses student and exchange visitor program certification for pro-terrorist conduct. Harvard is being held accountable for collaboration with the CCP, fostering violence, anti-Semitism, and pro-terrorist conduct from students on its campus. You know, it is such a convincing, fact-packed letter. I'm going to read the whole thing. And will you, along with me, quietly daydream about the day when we have a Canadian government that cares about peace and freedom this much to keep foreign agitators out? Let me read to you. Today, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem ordered DHS, Department of Homeland Security, to terminate the Harvard University Student and Exchange Visitor Program certification. This means Harvard can no longer enroll foreign students, and existing foreign students must transfer or lose their legal status. Harvard's leadership has created an unsafe campus environment by permitting anti-American pro-terrorist agitators to harass and physically assault individuals, including many Jewish students, and otherwise obstruct its once venerable learning environment. Many of these agitators are foreign students. Harvard's leadership further facilitated and engaged in coordinated activity with the CCP, that's the Chinese Communist Party, including hosting and training members of a CCP paramilitary group complicit in the Uyghur genocide. I didn't know that, did you? This administration is holding Harvard accountable for fostering violence, anti-Semitism, and coordinating with the Chinese Communist Party on its campus, said Secretary Noem. It is a privilege, not a right, for universities to enroll foreign students and benefit from their higher tuition payments to help pad their multi-billion-dollar endowments. Harvard had plenty of opportunity to do the right thing. It refused. They have lost their student and exchange visitor program certification as a result of their failure to adhere to the law. Let this serve as a warning to all universities and academic institutions across the country. And then they refer to a lawyer that Kristi Noem's letter, that Kristi Noem sent last month. I'll read it. On April 16, 2025, Secretary Noem demanded Harvard provide information about the criminality and misconduct of foreign students on its campus. Secretary Noem warned refusal to comply with this lawful order would result in the SEVP, that's the immigration program termination. This action comes after DHS terminated $2.7 million in DHS grants for Harvard last month. Harvard University brazenly refused to provide the required information requested and ignored a follow-up request from the department's Office of General Counsel. Secretary Noem is following through on her promise to protect students and prohibit terrorist sympathizers from receiving benefits from the U.S. government.